This abandoned hospital is believed to be haunted.
Here? Like,
Oh, dude! Is that him?
No.
No, okay, let me get a look.
Immediately as he enters the decaying school, he doesn't notice, but what looks like a person can be seen watching him from the
Cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore
I am.
Coming up next at number 9 is Wheelie. Some say it's a stuffed dog, while others say it looks more like a sheep, but either way, it's an old, creepy, haunted toy from the 19th century that can be found in the Prince Edward Island Museum in Canada. Nicknamed Wheelie due to the creaky wheels the stuffed animal sits on top of, this nearly 200-year-old toy was found lying inside the walls of the Yeo house while construction was underway. According to staff, the disfigured sheep dog toy was simply lying on the ground inside the walls, and so they decided to keep it and put it out on display for their visitors, which would be all well and fine, except for the fact that it very well may have been hidden in a wall for a reason. Apparently, Wheelie is known to wander around all by himself, and is often found hiding in a different spot than where he was left the night before, which, if horror movies have taught me anything, is never a good sign. Coming in at number 8, hair. Now, I will admit this is not a single object that can be found in a haunted museum, but it is definitely an exhibit that will make your skin crawl. Inside the Avanos Hair Museum in Turkey, yes, you heard that right, is literally a floor-to-ceiling cave-like room with countless little snippets of hair surrounding you at every angle. In fact, to be exact, there are 16,000 different hair samples adorning the walls. I'm sure you're wondering how such a museum began in the first place. Well, the common folklore is that a local potter once asked a dying friend to leave him a snippet of her hair to remember her by. The friend obliged and cut a small piece of her locks for the potter. From there, the potter placed the gift in his shop, and apparently this inspired visitors who began following in her footsteps and gifting locks to be displayed in his shop along with the original, until eventually the shop was overrun by hair. And don't worry, if you want in on the fun, or creepiness depending on your feeling about hair, guests are encouraged to leave behind a little sample themselves. Just ask the staff for some scissors and your wishes will be granted. Coming in at number 7, the dark mirror. Found in the Museum of the Paranormal and Occult, this dark mirror is said to show you much more than you will ever want to see. The Mobile Museum obtained this cursed mirror from the original owner, who claimed to have purchased it while attending a psychic fair in the Columbus area. Now, there are lots of alleged cursed mirrors out there, some said to be haunted by demons who escape in the night, torturing whoever possesses the cursed glass, which, don't get me wrong, is definitely terrifying. However, this particular object has more of an eerie, foreboding quality that is sure to send anyone who looks into it into a spiral. According to the museum, those that dare gaze into the cursed mirror claim to be struck with very upsetting visions. Some even reported ghastly sightings, such as their own corpse staring back at them. Coming in at number 6 is Einstein's Brain. In the famous Medical Mutter Museum in Philadelphia is none other than the brain of world-famous theoretical physicist Albert Einstein, or at least parts of it are there. And almost as peculiar as having sections of his brain preserved in glass slides and displayed is the story of how the genius brain wound up at the museum in the first place. Apparently, after he died in 1955, pathologist Thomas Harvey was the one to perform his autopsy. But unbeknownst to the family, he decided to remove Einstein's brain for preservation in the hopes that scientists of the future could study it to determine what made Einstein so intelligent. Eventually, after much reluctance, Einstein's son agreed to allow the brain to be kept under one very strict condition, that it be used for scientific research. Now, with permission from his next of kin, Harvey went forward, slicing the brain into 240 pieces, making sure to preserve each piece very carefully. Over the next few decades, Harvey would send bits and pieces to researchers upon request, and eventually donated the rest to this very museum it resides in today.
And we're to start things off at number 10 with the Satanic Idol. This item was once housed at the Warren Occult Museum, and according to the Warrens, the idol is about as pleasant as it sounds. Now, regardless of your opinion on these two paranormal investigators, the tale behind this object is pretty entertaining. So, in Sandy Hook, Connecticut, in 1991, a hunter stumbles upon something, a mysterious idol, just chilling in the middle of the woods. Feeling off about the whole thing, the hunter wisely decides to make a quick exit. But as he's walking away, a cloaked figure, an elderly man in black robes, shows up walking beside him. The robed man doesn't say a word, doesn't even glance in the hunter's direction. Just a silent, unsettling presence. Now, fast forward to paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren. The hunter reaches out to them, feeling the need for some supernatural expertise. Ed and Lorraine follow the hunter into the woods. Lo and behold, they confirm that the strange object is no ordinary artifact. It's an idol used in satanic rituals. So they decide to bring it back to the occult museum. Within just a couple days, though, things got even weirder. Ed finds Lorraine curled up in a fetal position in their driveway. She's completely unresponsive, and it's baffling even to the doctors who tend to her. Ed claimed it was the work of the cloaked figure, a supposed satanic high priest. According to him, this figure sent a warning message by unleashing some mysterious force upon Lorraine. Number 8. The Codex Gigas. The Codex Gigas, also known as the Devil's Bible, is a gigantic manuscript believed to have been penned between 1204 and 1230, currently housed in Sweden's National Library since 1768. This ancient book is a hefty compilation of the Old and New Testaments of the Bible, as well as a trove of other knowledge from its time. But what makes it infamous is its association with magic spells and a striking image of the devil, leading to a widespread belief in a curse surrounding the book. According to legend, the Codex Gigas was supposedly written by a monk who found himself facing a death sentence after breaking his vows. In a desperate attempt to save his life, the monk purportedly struck a deal with the devil. The task the monk was to complete was seemingly impossible. He had to transcribe all of human knowledge in a single night. With the devil's assistance, the monk accomplished this Herculean feat. But the cost? His own soul, of course. The demonic portrait featured in the Codex Gigas is said to be the devil's signature, or possibly a tribute to the devil drawn by the monk himself. This book is believed to hold a curse to this very day, with stories circulating that misfortune befalls those who possess or interact with it. Next up on the list, we have the cursed phone number. So this is a peculiar story linked to the Belgian phone number 359-888-888. 888. This number was active for 10 years before being disconnected. The number passed through the hands of 3 successive owners, and all of them met untimely deaths. The initial owner got cancer, and the subsequent 2 owners both died as a result of gun violence. The streak of untimely deaths actually caused the Bulgarian mobile phone company to suspend the use of the phone number, and that part is much stranger to me than the coincidental deaths. And at number 6 is the cursed car. So either the car in this story was cursed by some malevolent spirit who really wanted to harm whoever was driving it, or the car just wanted to end it. You be the judge after you hear the story. Undead Gorgeous posted this story to Reddit, writing the following: "My mom had a red Camaro. Yes, Christine jokes were made. That was literally cursed. Someone crossed 3 lanes of traffic and hit her while she was driving. She fixes it. Someone else driving the wrong way down a one-way street hits her dead on. She gets it fixed again. Her sister borrows it, parks it outside a 7-Eleven, and garbage truck backs into it, smashes the whole back end. She gets it fixed again. Mind you, this is the 3rd time in 6 months. Driving it home from the shop, someone runs a red light and smashes into the side of it. She gives up and sells it to a friend. The friend takes it into a car wash, the car wash malfunctions, and the whole front end gets crushed / partially impaled by a piece of machinery. Friend wins a lawsuit and scraps the car, ending the cycle."
At number 10, a real-life pocket dimension. So there are some super cool advancements happening right now at Harvard as scientists are doing some mind-blowing mind-blowing experiments, including creating a whole new universe. Well, okay, granted, it's inside of a computer, but still, they're messing around with different starting conditions and tweaking the laws of physics to see what the effects it has on the formation of the universe. Kind of like playing a giant cosmic video game. But here's a twist. The better we get at simulating our own universe, the more we start wondering if our own reality is just a big simulation too. I mean, okay, just think about it. If we can simulate a universe in a lab, who's to say someone or something didn't do the same to us? It's all a bit mind-bending. Like, are we living in a computer program created by super advanced beings, or is this base reality? Who knows? Maybe we're all just part of somebody else's wild experiment. At number 9 is this artifact from hell. The fiery pits of hell in many beliefs is thought to be a different realm, or in other words, a parallel universe. Yeah, it's a stretch, but whatever. Some say that Aleister Crowley, this dude who dabbled in mysticism back in the day, tried to chat with spirits from this realm, and legend has it that he listened to these spirits and, using their specific instructions, made a sort of scribe called the Enochian tablets. These glass tablets are etched all over with satanic sigils, which supposedly help strengthen the means of communication with the other side, kind of like a phone signal booster for the dead. Now, although these artifacts were made by some crazy dude here on Earth, the instructions which the cursed objects were designed with are thought to have somehow made their way from another dimension, aka hell. Some folks believe these objects can bring bad juju and even open doors to unwanted visitors from the great beyond. If you're enjoying the video so far, please support the channel by pressing like, subscribing to Most Amazing, and hitting that notification bell. It helps the video get seen by more people, and it's free, and do it. Just do it. Just do it. At number 8 is aliens. So not so long ago, the US government and the Pentagon basically came out and said, hey, those things flying around that we tried to tell you were weather balloons, well, they're real and we actually have no clue what they are. They call them unidentified aerial phenomena, or UAP for short, but it's basically just fancy talk for UFOs. Now here's the kicker. Nobody's got a clue where these things are from. Well, it's more probable that they're from outer space, like aliens cruising by for a visit. There's no reason they couldn't have come from another dimension, like a parallel universe. I mean, the way these things fly and completely disregard and just flat out ignore our laws of physics is like literally nothing we've ever seen before. So, I mean, who's to say? Another theory suggests that these objects aren't spaceships coming from alternate universes, but are actually the physical result of an extra-dimensional being or object passing through our third-dimensional plane. The interdimensional UFO hypothesis suggests that these sightings are the result of experiencing other dimensions that coexist separately alongside our own, and the UFOs are just our 3D brain failing to comprehend the extra-dimensional object. So who knows, maybe we've got some interdimensional tourists checking us out right now. But hey, that's just a theory. At number 7, the man from Taured. Let's take a break from space and talk about a seriously bizarre occurrence that basically proves the existence of beings from parallel universes visiting us, whether intentionally or accidentally. So it's July 1954 at the Tokyo airport. This guy shows up, but his passport says he's from a place called Taured. Now, the passport looked genuine with all the security features and everything, except for the fact that there's no place on Earth called Taured. And get this, his money was from a bank that nobody knew, and the company he claimed to work for had no records of his existence. Even the hotel he booked seemed to have never heard of him. Now here's where it gets even weirder. By the next day, he had completely disappeared, like poof. Vanished into thin air. Now, where was this dude from? Was it a parallel universe mix-up? I mean, imagine a world where Taured exists, but not here. Maybe he accidentally hopped from this world to ours through some weird space-time hiccup? And maybe the government abducted him. Maybe. I mean, maybe lizard people. I don't know. At number 6 is the Bermuda Triangle of space. So imagine you're an astronaut chilling up there in the International Space Station, just doing your thing, when suddenly, bam, you get hit by this crazy burst of light that wakes you up from your snooze, even though your eyes are shut tight. Well, that's what some space peeps experience when they cruise through this area called the South Atlantic Anomaly, or SAA for short. Sort of like the Bermuda Triangle, but in space. Now, what causes this cosmic alarm clock is our planet's magnetic field isn't perfectly lined up, so it messes with the rings of charged particles called the Van Allen radiation belts. These belts hang around Earth, but there's a spot right over the South Atlantic where they get super close to the surface, like 200 kilometers close, which, I mean, isn't that close by but relatively speaking. When the space station rolls through this zone, computers go haywire, astronauts see random flashes of light, thanks to the radiation tickling their eyes, and even the trusty Hubble telescope takes a break from stargazing.
Starting off this countdown, we have the sarcophagus. Basically, this is a massive steel and concrete structure that covers the Chernobyl power plant. It was designed to help contain the radiation. The construction of the structure lasted for 206 days, and those working on it had to work in shifts of no more than 7 minutes. Any more time spent near the reactors would have killed them. But still, they did sacrifice their lives building this because thousands of workers still died from exposure to the radiation. Those that survived got severely ill, and majority of them developed cancer. Nowadays, the sarcophagus is still there, but it's beginning to crumble. In 2019, they were in the process of dismantling it because it was going to collapse. So a new one is currently being installed. That's probably the scariest thing in Chernobyl because of how deadly the building it's containing is. Coming in at number 9, we have the gas masks, and if you guys are liking this video or want to see part 3, then smash that like button. Chernobyl already looks like the place where an apocalypse occurred. Buildings are completely abandoned, run down, and overgrown with nature. What doesn't help is the piles upon piles of gas masks scattered all throughout Chernobyl. This really adds to the eeriness of this place, and again, makes it look like a place where a zombie or alien takeover occurred. In fact, there is one room inside a school which is just completely filled with child-sized gas masks. It's very creepy, but also sad. Like, imagine how frightened the young children were when this happened. The gas masks found there are just a sad reminder of the horrors that took place there when the reactor exploded. Moving on to number 8, we have the rotting toys. Littered all throughout the city are toys or personal belongings people had to leave behind. The saddest thing to see are pictures of children's toys left behind. Like, I just think that was probably someone's favorite little dolly. Go anywhere there and you'll find items scattered everywhere, now broken and covered in filth. Like, imagine you're rushed out of your home and have to leave behind all your personal belongings. That must have been so hard. I can't imagine how everyone must have felt. It's really depressing to think about. Moving on at number 7, we have the examination chair. So this one is pretty strange, but somehow a gynecologist examination chair ended up in the middle of the woods outside of a hospital. Not only is that super weird, but it's also super creepy. It's all rusted and beat up and looks like an old torture device. Not only that, but that means someone had to go inside the abandoned hospital, find that chair, and then carry it all the way back down and into the woods. I got a lot of questions. Why would someone do this? And how long did it take them to do this? And again, why would someone do this? Either way, it makes for a very spooky encounter. Moving on at number 6, we have the abandoned cooling tower. A partially constructed cooling tower can be found at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. They were built to evaporate the cooling water from the 2 new reactors. Sadly, they were never completed. Now, these things are massive. The diameter was over 120 meters and it stands at 150 meters tall. Obviously, after the accident, there was no need to continue on with the construction of this, so the government just left the towers there along with everything else. Eventually, over time, nature will have its way with it and it will start to erode and crumble. It's just crazy seeing all these abandoned infrastructures. Imagine how life would have been if that explosion never happened. Starting off this countdown, we have Pablo Escobar. It was a very smart decision for Christian de Boudoir and his wife to purchase Pablo Escobar's old abandoned mansion. Legend goes that Escobar would hide tons of money all over the place, so chances are there's money stashed away somewhere in the walls. And in 2016, they made a pretty miraculous discovery while excavating the property. They found a safe hidden beneath the entrance of the house. The safe was about 2 feet by 2 feet and weighed about 600 to 700 pounds. But sadly, its contents were never revealed. But because it was hidden on the property, chances are it contains a boatload of money. Moving on down at number 9, we have the vintage house. Urban explorer and photographer that goes by the name Freaktography has found some amazing discoveries over the years. Most of the stuff he finds are very old and dirty and damaged, but in rare cases he comes across some very interesting finds. In this case, he was exploring an abandoned suburban home from the 70s. Inside, it was filled with vintage gems, like vintage collectibles like old Barbie dolls, Polaroid cameras, and a bunch of figurines like Yoda, E.T., and a Star Wars figurine set. Those things must be worth a lot by now. Moving on to number 8, we have the Farmhouse. So back in 2017, Reddit user Evil English decided to explore his grandparents' old abandoned house in Tennessee. While doing so, he noticed a block of concrete in the floor by the staircase. The concrete had a round cap on it, and when he pried it off, he noticed it was a safe. Yeah, a secret safe that was built into the wooden floors. The family then hired a locksmith to open the safe, and inside was a collection of valuable items. He found coins, silver bars, cash, and antiques, all worth thousands of dollars. Coming in at number 7, we have the money in the walls. In 2007, antiques dealer Jeff Beetleman was asked to scope out an abandoned house by the late daughter's owner. She had always heard stories of treasure being buried in the walls, and she wanted to see if it was true. Plus, it was an abandoned house, so she had no problem with tearing a few walls down. And turns out that this legend was true. They found a bunch of old coins from 1826 to 1964, worth $200,000. Turns out that her relatives would use a slit in the wall as like a giant piggy bank. In our 6th spot, we have the cellar. When you're exploring an abandoned house, especially the attic or cellar, chances are you're more likely to find a dead body stashed away there than anything worth money. But that wasn't the case for some workers in France. Workers were demolishing an old abandoned house when they came across exactly 600 gold coins in a container in the cellar. The coins were from Belgium and dated back to the 1870s. They featured the king from back then, King Leopold II's face on them. It said that these coins are worth about 100,000 euros, which is about 118,000 American dollars.
Moving on to number 8, the Hope Diamond. As the legend goes, back in 1666, a French merchant obtained this beautiful blue diamond after illegally plucking the gem from a Hindu idol and selling it to King Louis XIV, a sacrilegious crime for which he was later mauled to death by dogs for committing. Fast forward a few years to the French Revolution, and the cursed gem was allegedly stolen again, this time disappearing for years, only reappearing in the 1800s. For years, experts questioned where this jewel had been hidden, but their curiosity was short-lived, as soon the jewel wasted no time ruining lives of those it interacted with, and has routinely been blamed for several tragedies over the years. Some of the misfortunes include the loss of great fortune, people's deaths, and people taking their own lives, while some even say Marie Antoinette's death could have been linked to her possession of the cursed diamond. Nowadays, this cursed object is safely stowed away as a part of the Smithsonian Institution, so let's just hope it's never found and stolen again. Otherwise, who knows what could be unleashed. Moving on to number 7, Mandy. Back in 1991, the Quesnel District Museum received an anonymous donation in the form of a doll, which I mean is never a good start. The donor informed them that she could no longer handle living with the doll due to her constant crying and relentless ability to move objects or even make them disappear, and that essentially she was just way too creeped out and starting to fear for her life. Allegedly, the museum contacted a psychic to see if the information they got from the donor was true, and as it turns out, it was. The psychic advised the museum to get rid of the doll and not keep it, but they went against their advice and included it in one of their exhibits anyways. Soon Mandy began haunting the halls of the museum. Visitors claimed to hear disembodied footsteps, the sound of tapping glass, and some even swear they witnessed her face change and her eyes blink. Even creepier is that when the museum decided to place Mandy alongside other dolls in the same case, the next day all the other dolls were either damaged or found tossed onto the floor in front of the case. After that, they tucked her away and kept her hidden, just in case. Moving on to number 6, The Buk Box. Back in 2001, a man named Kevin Maris purchased the box from an estate sale. When Kevin bought the item, he was warned to never open it. He agreed and suspiciously took it back to his antique shop, placing it in his basement. But still, the box wasted no time unleashing paranormal activity. The next day, Kevin went downstairs to find all the lights smashed, and his employees were terrified, saying they'd heard unruly screaming coming from the basement for hours. Now, for whatever godforsaken reason, Kevin decided the box would be a great gift for his mom, and so he opened it. Inside, he found a note that read "Shalom," 2 locks of hair, a candlestick holder, and some dried rosebuds, but unknowingly, he also released a demon. One day, his mother surprised him by dropping by the shop, so he gave her gift, only to come back minutes later to her unresponsive. After he rushed her to the hospital, they discovered she had suffered from a severe stroke. After this, he began taking the curse more seriously, so he tried to sell it at his shop, but anytime anyone bought it, they would promptly return it. Eventually in 2003, he put it up on eBay, and a paranormal enthusiast purchased the box, who quickly regretted that purchase after they were haunted by an old woman who would choke them in their sleep every night. It was passed down a few more times, each owner experiencing horrible health issues or claiming to be haunted by an evil demon, until it was eventually purchased by museum owner Zach Baggin and placed in his occult museum. Moving on to number 5, Pearls of Death. It's probably a pretty safe blanket rule that you shouldn't go around touching too much of anything you find in Ed and Lorraine's demonic collection, but some things are definitely worse than others, and this next one falls into the latter category. Notoriously one of the most dangerous items found inside the Warrens Museum, the Pearls of Death is a cursed necklace said to do exactly as its name suggests. Allegedly, anyone who dares place them around their neck will be choked and suffocated to death. Coming in at number 4, the Shadow Doll. When it comes to creepy dolls, I'll be honest, it doesn't take too much to freak me out. But with that being said, there is definitely a very good reason why the Shadow Doll is one of the most feared possessions in Ed and Lorraine's museum. Now, what starts off the seemingly endless list of creepy things about this doll is that there is no definitive answer as to why it was created or who created it. But according to Ed and Lorraine's files, it was made using both human and animal bones and was absolutely used in satanic rituals. So it is definitely possessed by some less than ideal company. Said to have been found in an antique shop by a couple, they began to think something was wrong after they kept waking up night after night covered in inexplicable scratches. But it wasn't until the doll began showing up in their nightmares, telling them that she was going to them, that they decided to get rid of this terrifying toy. And good thing they did too. Legend has it that if someone takes a picture of this doll, she will visit you in your dreams and kill you in your sleep. Good thing she is tucked away and hard to find. Moving on to number 3, Conjured Chest. Believed to have been built somewhere around 1830, the story behind this terrifying object all starts with a man named Jeremiah Graham. As the legend goes, he was making preparations for his firstborn, which included this very hand-carved chest that had been made by one of his slaves. However, Jeremiah was not initially satisfied with the chest, and the enslaved man, Remus, received several beatings from Jeremiah and died from the injury. Now, for obvious reasons, this didn't sit well with the other enslaved members of the community, and to avenge his death, they decided to cast a curse on the chest to forever torment the family that had killed their friend. Unaware of this curse, the chest was moved into the nursery, and soon after they began noticing that anytime someone put clothing into the chest, they ended up being involved one way or another in a tragedy, usually their death. Years later, a woman named Virginia is said to have tried to reverse the curse, enlisting the help of her maid to gather what was needed to put an end to the suffering, but it doesn't appear to have done the trick. For a few more generations, the chest continued haunting all that opened it, until finally it was donated to a museum and hidden away forever. Moving on to number 2, Peggy. When Jane Harris, who specializes in haunted dolls, received a package in the mail, it did not take her any time to figure out that this one was very scary. Inside the package was a blonde-haired doll with a note explaining that her name was Peggy and that she was haunted. Apparently the woman who mailed it had tried seeking a priest out to exorcise the doll, but it was unsuccessful, and the woman no longer wanted the doll in her house as she was starting to fear for her life. Jane began an investigation immediately, posting numerous photos online for feedback. Now, a day later, she had 80 emails claiming that the photos of Peggy had made them nauseous or given them intense migraines. Then she got the most frightening message of all. Apparently, one woman suffered a heart attack after looking at the photo. And while she survived, a heart attack from a photo of a doll is a lot. After just 4 days in her custody, Jane began feeling Peggy's wrath and suddenly became very ill. But when a friend took the doll away, Jane's health improved immediately. Peggy does not like anyone to know much about her, but she is known to invade people's dreams and give them haunting news. One woman said Peggy came to her in a dream telling her to watch out for her cat. The next morning, her cat died. After a while, the spirit that was trapped in this doll made life very difficult, and so Jane eventually gave it to a museum. Peggy is now locked away under constant supervision and actually requires a waiver before you can see her face to face. And last up in our number 1 spot, the Basano Vase. As the legend goes, the Basano Vase was a gift for a 15th century bride on her wedding day. But tragically, the bride never made it down the altar as she was killed the eve before her wedding, still clutching her beloved gift. It's said the bride vowed revenge for never being able to reach the altar and marry, and many believe the curse lives inside the vase as each member of her family who took possession of it after her tragic death died soon after. But the strangest thing about this cursed object is that it vanished from the public eye for literal centuries. Somewhere between the 15th century and 1988, the vase's location was unknown until it popped up at an auction in Lira and sold for $4 million. The vase was allegedly sold with a note that read, "Beware, this vase brings death," and the man who bought the vase at the 1988 auction reportedly died soon after. The next man who bought it was a doctor who died 3 months later. In fact, if the reports are true, the longest anyone has ever been able to withstand the evil vase before succumbing to the curse is 3 months. As of today, it's unclear just exactly where this vase is, and so the mystery of the disappearing vase remains. Let's just hope it stays hidden.
We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with the movie posters. Back in 2007, a man named Blair Peter moved into a home in Alberta, Canada, and began renovating it. The house was originally built in the early 1900s and it needed some work. But while lifting up some floorboards, he found tons of old original movie posters. He continued on renovating the house and found more movie posters stuffed in the crawl space and under the roof of the house. So it's thought that they were used as insulation, and obviously it wasn't worth money back then. But now, cha-ching. He found more than 360 posters. Apparently the man that owned the house was the owner of a local movie theater. So some of these posters were the ones hung up in the lobby of the theater. It was thought that Peter could get around $50,000 for some of the posters. That's one plus of buying an older house. There's a chance it's filled with hidden treasures just like this. In our 4th spot, we have the Time Capsule House. Again, another abandoned house where the urban explorer Thearcophagus struck gold. So story goes that he had driven by this abandoned house a number of times, but had no clue it was actually abandoned. That was until one day he noticed the windows were boarded up. A month later, the door was open. Time for him to enter. When he went inside, it was like he entered a time capsule. The house was filled with vintage items. He found old board games, antiques, and artifacts. Items that would be worth thousands. But as he always claims, he never moves anything from the house. He just photographs them and then leaves. He takes nothing but photos and leaves nothing but footprints. That's his motto. If he did take these items though, that dude would be rich by now. Coming in at number 3, we have the Mayan artifacts. Imagine being a junk removal specialist. Like, that's an actual job. You get paid to come in and clean up other people's crap. It doesn't sound that rewarding, but in this one case, it definitely was. In 2009, a team of junk removal specialists were called into an abandoned Soho apartment to clear things up. But inside, they found a bunch of valuable artifacts, including an ancient Mayan artifact, ancient figurines, and some valuable bowls and jugs. Altogether, these items are said to be worth around $19,000. Yikes. And to think that almost ended up in the landfill. Coming in at number 2, we have Superman. In 2013, a contractor was tearing down some walls in an abandoned house that he planned to renovate and then move into with his 4 children. While doing so, he found that the walls were stuffed with newspapers for insulation. But among the newspaper was a 1938 comic book showcasing the debut of Superman. It said that it was a virgin copy. That's like actually what they call it, but okay, sorry. It said that it was a virgin copy. Despite it being in not the best condition, the comic still sold at auction for $175,000. He actually would have gotten more from it, but in an argument with his relatives, the back of the cover got ripped, which decreased its value by $75,000. But still, that's one lucky man. And in our number 1 spot, we have the rolls of cash. I swear, urban explorer Freaktography has the best of luck. So he was out exploring an abandoned home near where he lived. He said that the house was abandoned for almost 30 years. While in the house setting up to take some photos, he noticed something odd sticking out from behind the mattress. It was a tin, and inside were bundles of tightly rolled up American and Canadian money. He said there was about $6,800 there. Now, he could have just made off with the money, but instead, he did the right thing. He tracked down the original owners and returned the money back to them. They had no clue the money was even stashed there, but they were incredibly grateful. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with the Toxic River. There's a river that's just filled with radioactive water right near the reactor. The scariest part is, despite how toxic the water is, a bunch of aquatic life live there. In particular, giant catfish. Yes, giant catfish. A video from 2016 shows a massive catfish swimming in the water. People originally were like, oh my god, what the heck is that? It must be some sort of mutated animal. Later, it was just found out to be a giant catfish. But still, what the heck? And it's the fact that they have adapted to be able to survive in that highly toxic water. Like, that just baffles me. Not only that, but they can thrive there because the water has no higher predators. Obviously though, you're not allowed to go fishing there. Okay, I feel like that's a given, but I also feel like people would still try it, so I'm just gonna say it. Don't go fishing there. In our 4th spot, we have the jarfish. Speaking of fish, we're gonna go with this. So back in 2016, photographer and journalist Miriam Wazer took a trip to explore the ruins of Chernobyl. While inside an abandoned building, she came across something very creepy and odd. She found a bunch of fish and other specimens in jars. Why someone was collecting fish, it just baffles many. And they weren't even like proper beakers or science mason jars. No, it looked like someone emptied out their jar of pickles and then used it to store the specimen. I think it's best if those remain untouched. Like, can you imagine how stinky they would be if they were open nowadays? They would reek. Old stinky fish is not something I would ever want to handle. Now the other specimen beside the fish are unknown. No one knows what the heck they are. But if you know, let me know in the comments below. Coming in at number 3, we have the abandoned hospitals. The hospitals at Chernobyl are quite eerie. They're just filled with rusted, empty hospital beds, littered syringes, and more. The walls and floors are cracking, and there's dirt and questionable red marks on the floor. I think the saddest thing though is that these hospitals are often trashed with medical supplies just tossed everywhere. The days after the explosion happened, people were frantically rushing to hospitals. Hospital staff were overwhelmed by the amount of people there. This moment is still preserved in the hospitals to this day. It's pretty dark once you think about it. And at number 2 today, we have the Sad Alley. The Sad Alley, or the Alley of Memory, is an alley in the Ukraine created in memory of the villages and residents who had to flee from their homes during the disaster. Basically, it's a walkway with signs lining the sides. These signs are names of cities and villages that had to evacuate and leave everything behind. It's a way to ensure we just never forget the impact that this disaster had. It's really sad. And in our number 1 spot today we have the radioactive spiders. Yes, you heard me correctly. Imagine if Peter Parker got bit by one of these bad guys. He'd be like a weirdly mutated Spider-Man or something like that. But anyways, the spiders in the exclusion zone are radioactive, so you definitely don't want to be bit by one. Oh wait, it gets worse. They also make radioactive webs. Yeah, you heard me, that's a thing. So you don't have to just worry about these spiders, but you have to worry about walking through their deadly webs. Like, what the heck? No thank you. Nuh-uh. I'm not a fan of spiders, but imagine radioactive ones. That sounds like it belongs in a horror movie. Radioactive, radioactive.
At number 5 is the miniature black hole created in a lab. Just like that Simpsons episode where a black hole created by a hadron collider starts off as a cute little guy before it eventually consumes all of Springfield and eventually the entire planet, scientists are well underway in creating a black hole right here on Earth. I mean, okay, not the scary like universe gobbling type, but like one that lets us peek into the secrets of space. As it turns out, making one in a lab is a huge goal for scientists, aiming to unlock mysteries about gravity and the teeny tiny world of quantum mechanics. And this opens up all kinds of possibilities as we attempt to learn more about extra dimensions. Now picture a universe having more dimensions beyond the 3 of space and the 1 of time that we're used to. And in these extra dimensions, which would be imperceivable to our 3D monkey brains, gravity would be way stronger. So if we could create a black hole in a lab, it could open a portal to these other dimensions. Now, don't get too worried about the black hole, sucking everything up, because it wouldn't really do that. Even if we could create a teeny black hole, it would disappear in like a flash, not able to sustain itself with its own mass. But the real mind-bending thing is that if we could make a proper black hole in a lab, it might help us crack the code on these hidden dimensions. At number 4 is the mirror dimension. If you thought the last entry was crazy, just wait to hear about this. Imagine if we could open a door to a parallel universe, one where everything is similar but also kind of different. Now, allow me to explain. The Oak Ridge National Laboratory wants to shoot a bunch of tiny particles through a 50-foot tunnel, pass them by a big magnet, and then slam them against the wall. Sounds pretty simple, right? But if everything goes right, some of those particles might turn into mirror image versions of themselves and zap through that wall. And if that happens, it could be the first clue of a whole nother universe hanging out right next to ours. Now, this mirror world isn't like what you'd expect from the movies. There's no alternate versions of you or evil twins, but it could have its own physics, its own rocks and planets that are totally different from what we know. And the experiments at this university might be able to find it. At number 3 is Hoags Object. I think I pronounced that right. Imagine stumbling upon a galaxy that looks like a cosmic donut in the vastness of space. Meet Hoags Object, a weird eye-shaped galaxy that's unlike anything astronomers have ever seen before in our entire universe. Picture this, it's essentially a bright yellow older core surrounded by a ring of shiny young blue stars, but in between them, nothingness. Discovered in 1950 by astronomer Arthur Hoag, this galaxy left scientists scratching their heads. One theory suggests that maybe billions of years ago a smaller galaxy zoomed through the larger one, shaping this odd structure. But there are no signs of nearby galaxies that could have caused this, and the core spins way too slowly for such a collision. Adding to the galactic mystery, if you peek closely, hidden within Hoag's Object, there's a smaller galaxy that takes the same eye-looking ring shape as its larger counterpart, right there where 1 o'clock would be if the galaxy were a giant cosmic clock. Yeah, you heard me right, a galaxy within another galaxy. Galaxy Inception. How did this cosmic oddity came to be? Who knows? Maybe parallel universes or something. At number 2, an asteroid from another system. Imagine you're this telescope-wielding astronomer dude scanning the skies in Hawaii, and suddenly you see this weird long thing zipping through space. That's Oumuamua, a name that's as bizarre as the thing itself. It's shaped like a giant space cucumber just cruising by. I mean, it's massive, probably a kilometer long, but crazy skinny given its length, only about 170 meters wide. And it's not from our neck of the cosmic woods. No, it's racing way too fast to be a part of our solar system's gang. Scientists think it rolled in during the Victoria era, but only God knows where it hung out before that. What's even stranger is that its sheer speed is a wonky trajectory, as it definitely doesn't behave by something that's bound to the sun's gravitational pull. This motion might be described if the object were a comet, as ice melts as it's approaching the sun, propelling the comet like a jet does a plane. But if that were the case, the flying giant space cucumber would have a visible tail as it leaves behind a trail of vapor pushing the object off course, but that just isn't the case. Cue the alien theories! Maybe it's a UFO with a solar sail getting pushed around by the sun's rays. But we can get even crazier. Some suggest that it might be from a whole other universe. I mean, think about it. Oumuamou's trajectory isn't just wonky because of the sun's gravity. It's almost as if there's something else tugging on it. Maybe it's from a place where the rules of space are totally different. At number 1 is the Anita Experiment, the scientific discovery that proves the existence of parallel universes. The claim begins with a hook that would tingle the spidey senses of any sci-fi enthusiast. Imagine a remote research station in Antarctica where scientists diligently hunt for cosmic rays. Now that's intriguing enough on its own, but it gets even better. You see, since they were looking for cosmic rays, they had their instruments oriented towards the sky. That is, until researchers suddenly detected not one, but 2 signals shooting out of the ground beneath them, defying all logic. Because, you see, these rays of neutrinos are supposed to come from supernova, so it's super improbable that the rays are passing through the entire mass of the Earth without coming into contact with a single particle of matter, only to land on a tiny weather balloon in the sky. Literally impossible. To make sense of all this, scientists delved into over 40 papers offering a buffet of explanations. Dark matter, elusive particles called sterile neutrinos, and then, the grandest of them all, parallel universe. Essentially a mirror image of ours, but where time runs backwards. Imagine that. This audacious idea isn't pulled out of thin air either. It's rooted in actual science, a theorem which hints that alongside our universe, an antimatter universe stretches backwards through time before the Big Bang. But, okay, let's just tap the brakes, because a more down-to-earth theory has also surfaced. That's right, hold your antimatter horses, because it turns out it's more likely that these signals were simply reflected off of ice or skipped off subglacial lakes. The truth, it seems, is more grounded, reflecting high-energy particles, not parallel dimensions. Sorry, y'all. I mean, unless you want to go ahead and put away Occam's razor, then definitely take the extra dimensions.
Next up on the list we had the clown doll. In 1966, a man in California stumbled upon a creepy clown doll at a collector's sale. The collector practically forced it into the guy's hands, blabbering about needing to get rid of the thing. It supposedly belonged to a man who had taken the life of his own mother. Why someone would want to bring something like that into their house, regardless of any paranormal beliefs, is beyond me, but I digress. Weird stuff started happening in the guy's place. The doll's eyes seemed to track him, and the air around it just felt off. One night, he could have sworn he heard faint laughter coming from his living room where the doll was displayed. Of course, he was the only one home, and stuff like this just kept happening. He'd find things sitting in places he didn't remember leaving them, and when he had friends over, they would describe having an eerie vibe about the doll as well. Even his dog, usually fearless, refused to go near the thing. Sleep became a luxury, as he'd wake up hearing that same slight laughter from the living room. Was it just part of a nightmare? Was there actually something chuckling in his living room in the middle of the night? He didn't want to wait to find out. Enough was enough, and he chucked the thing out with the trash the very next morning. And we're finishing off the list with a tale from Reddit once again. I'm going to call the Quilt. The story was posted by Mom Donger, who wrote, "Hijacking my SO story since he doesn't have a Reddit. His mom bought an old quilt at a flea market. It was a nice one, handmade and dirt cheap. She put it in the guest room, which was pretty much the dog's room at that time. They loved to go in there to play, nap, etc. As soon as the quilt was put in there, they stopped going in. They would stand in the doorway and growl and bark, something that's very out of character for both of them. Things would also fly off the shelves. You would put something up and then find it halfway across the room. Sometimes you could hear banging on the walls. One night, they had my SO's grandmother over. She had a bad back, so he gave her his bed since it was a better mattress. He slept in the guest room with the quilt. The next morning, he woke up completely covered in scratches. His mother eventually had a dream where her grandmother appeared by her bedside and woke her up. She told her, "Get rid of the quilt! You need to get rid of it now!" Next morning, she woke up and threw it away. Stuff stopped flying off the walls, dogs returned to normal, never had a problem since, though sometimes the antique radio turns on by itself.
Coming in at number 5 is Annabelle. Okay, I know we're all pretty aware of the cursed demon doll, but I just couldn't help it. I mean, she is one of the most terrifying things you can find in a museum after all. Although nowadays she's locked up tight in the famous paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren's occult museum, this wasn't always the case. Back in 1970, Annabelle was gifted to a nursing student named Donna, but it didn't take long before Donna and her roommate Angie knew that something was off. After about a month, the roommates began finding disturbing messages lying around their apartment, warning them to help Lou. Lou was one of their friends who had apparently warned the girls of the doll since day one. Eventually, things got so creepy that the women contacted a medium who told them to not be afraid, that the doll was merely possessed by a young girl named Annabelle Higgins, who had died on the property years prior. The medium advised them that Annabelle felt really safe here and would like to stay, so they agreed. But that was all part of the demon's plan. Not long after, Lou stayed over, and when he awoke from a nightmare, he found he couldn't move his body. And then, like straight out of a horror movie, he says Annabelle walked up his body and strangled him until he passed out. After that, the girls contacted a priest who put them in touch with the paranormal investigators, Ed and Lorraine Warren, who discredited the medium and said it was, in fact, a dangerous demon possessing the doll. However, even now, despite being locked up, the doll should be deeply feared. It was reported one man who visited the museum mocked the doll and only a few days later died after losing control of his motorbike. Next up at number 4, The Hands Resist Him painting. As far as paintings go, The Hands Resist Him, created by William Stoneham in 1972, is probably considered one of the most haunted pieces in the whole world. Stoneham claims the inspiration for the piece came from an old photograph from his early years, and somehow, over time, the painting landed in the hands of a California couple. As the story goes, the sellers who auctioned it on eBay in 2000 kept the painting in their 4-year-old's room. But one morning, the girl claimed that the people in the painting were not letting her sleep at night. So, for the girl's peace of mind, they set up a motion sensor camera to prove that no monsters were coming out of the painting. However, to their surprise, they captured some truly frightening activity. They awoke to find photos of the boy crawling from the painting, and others where the doll's face had changed to a very angry disposition while holding a weapon. Not only that, it's also rumored to have been responsible for the death of 3 men who came into contact with it at one time or another. Today, you can find it in the back room of Smith's Perception Fine Art Gallery in Grand Rapids, Michigan. But be warned, those that witness the painting often complain of nausea or extreme physical pain while in its presence. And last up today in the number 1 spot, Nabro. In 17th century Iceland, there was a well-known witchcraft ritual where people would create pants out of the skin of the deceased in hopes of a better life for them and their families moving forward. Called Nabro, meaning corpse breeches, or more commonly referred to as necropants nowadays, the pants were made as a talisman to magically summon more money for whoever made them. However, there was a catch. The man in question had to have consented before death, and the deed could only be done after the burial had taken place. Once loved ones said their goodbyes, you were free to dig up the corpses and peel off the skin, being careful to keep it all in one piece. It was believed that no holes or tears could occur, otherwise the power of the necropants would be lost. But disgustingly, it didn't stop there. Once you had fashioned the pants and put them on your person, the ritual demanded you head out into the village and steal 1 coin from a destitute widow. From there, the coin was to be placed in the groin of the pants, along with a traditional Icelandic sigil for the ritual to be complete. There is only 1 known pair of such pants remaining today, and it's held in the Museum of Icelandic Sorcery and Witchcraft. And if you ask me, they are just about the most terrifying thing that I can think of. Well, there you have it, guys. I hope you liked this video. If you did, make sure to hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you next time.
Want to see more videos like this one? Check out this video next. It's about discoveries in Antarctica that left scientists terrified. These are real stories about the remarkable events that happened in one of the most isolated places on the planet. Click the video now. What are you waiting for?